Welcome to the UO Today podcast, conversations that offer a glimpse into the heart of the humanities at the University of Oregon. Listen as our faculty, students, and guests introduce ideas and research that help us reflect on the past, navigate the present, and imagine possible futures. I'm Leah Middlebrook, Director of the Oregon Humanities Center. My guest today is Olivia Miller, the new Executive Director of the Jordan Schnitzer Museum of Art at the University of Oregon. Prior to her arrival at the JSMA, Olivia was the Director of the University of Arizona Museum of Art in Tucson. She earned her master's degree in art history here at UO. Thank you for coming on the show, Olivia.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and what sparked your interest in art and in art history?
Oh, that's a great question because it takes me back a long way. I like to start my journey by talking about a very early childhood memory because I think it's really important to kind of acknowledge the way those experiences can, have a strong effect on us even when we're really young. So my earliest memory of being at a museum was when I think I was 2 or 3. And the memory is brief. It's me putting my hand in the water at the fountain at the Kimball Art Museum in Fort Worth, Texas. And that's where I spent my early childhood. And, so my mom was really wonderful about taking my sisters and I to museums, to the symphony, to the opera, the ballet. And so I was very, very fortunate. And I recognize how fortunate I am that I felt comfortable in these spaces from a very early age. And then, growing up, it was art was just always of interest to me, and I really liked drawing. I always had coloring books and was playing with Play-Doh, and was fairly proficient at it. So it was something that I went back to time and again. So I think growing up, I always knew I would do something with art. I wasn't sure what that was. I didn't really have an understanding of what career options were available. But another kind of key moment in my development was a high school art project. It was in my studio art class, and we had to pick a name out of a hat and do sort of a mini art history project. And it was mainly biographical, but we had to pick the name of an artist and pick an artwork and then do a presentation for the class. And I picked Goya. And oh my gosh, I love Goya. And and so that was another just sort of milestone that opened my eyes. And so when I went to college at the University of Arizona for my undergrad, I knew I would do something with art. I thought that I would be maybe a public school art teacher. And then I took my first art history class, and that was that. So yeah, and then it just kind of went from there. I can go on and on if you have more questions, but
Well, I'm liking everything you're talking about, and as a Hispanist, I too am a huge fan of Goya. But I also appreciated what you mentioned, that you went to your undergrad at the University of Arizona, because then you went on to lead or to be the director at the University of Arizona Museum of Art.
that's right.
That's terrific. And then you did your MA here at the University of Oregon. Now you're back here. So, that sounds like a very promising set of connections for thinking about a university museum. Can you tell us a little bit about some of your accomplishments when you were at the University of Arizona Museum of Art?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I was there for quite a long time, 13 years, and which was long for me. It's the longest place I've ever worked. And, it was really, really wonderful that I was able to build my experience there and kind of see the functions of a museum from different perspectives, because I did have 3 different job roles when I was there. So I started as the curator of education, and my main job at that time was to lead the docent program. And I consider that an accomplishment because transitions are always really hard with volunteer groups, and my retention rate was really high. 90% of them continued with the program, and it's something I'm really proud of. They were really wonderful to work with. And then moving over into the curator position, some of the things I did, which they might not be as visible to those who don't work in the museum, but just getting a lot of things organized, a lot of records up to date, redoing the permanent collection galleries. One of the things we did during the pandemic was to translate all of our labels into Spanish, and we were able to get that into a pattern where every single label that goes up on the wall, was now translated into Spanish. And so it kind of helped us redirect our timeline so that we can make sure that happened. Certainly the homecoming of our stolen and returned painting by Willem de Kooning is definitely a highlight of my career. And that I really just feel like I was in the right place at the right time and was very lucky to be there. But I'm also really proud of the work we did to get that painting back and get it back on the wall.
I'm going to ask you a little bit more about that in a moment because
Sure.
that is such a thrilling story. But first, I just want to hear a little bit more about what excites you now about leading the Jordan Schnitzer Museum of Art.
Yeah, well, I mean, it really feels, I don't know, like the stars aligned for me to come back here. When I graduated, I wanted to stay in the Pacific Northwest, and that just wasn't the way that life worked out. But it obviously did because now I'm back. So I'm really excited to be here, and I've just spent this past week just soaking everything in and really trying to get an understanding of the collection, which is going to take me so long. But that's one of the things that excites me the most because the museum where I was from, we just did not have the holdings of Asian art that we do here. And it's an area that I'm not super familiar with. So I love that I can have a job where I'm just continuously learning and being in awe. I love going into the galleries and seeing all of the faculty and student collaborations and seeing the way that exhibitions have been curated, just with such a depth and again collaborative spirit to make sure that we continue to function as a teaching museum. So there's a lot of things I'm excited about. I can't wait to learn more about the Art Heals program. Um, and to start, just shadowing some of those sessions to really see the impact that our education department has as well.
So exciting. These are early days, and so I imagine that you may not have an answer to this question, but do you have any goals for your first year as executive director?
I do, and some are, they might not be super exciting, but I want to keep a really open mind because I think it's incredibly important for a director to um, learn the institution. I need to learn a lot about the history of the museum, what has been done, what hasn't been done. If things didn't work in the past, are those barriers still there? I need to meet more people on campus and in the community and really learn about Eugene. And so my first year is really a lot of learning and a lot of meeting with people. But there's also some really kind of hard, steadfast things that we do have to get done. So the biggest one right now is reaccreditation. So the museum is accredited by the American Alliance of Museums. It's hugely important for us to maintain that accreditation. It's a sign of this museum committing to excellence in everything it does. And so that will be quite time consuming, but I have no concerns. This museum does great work. But the other thing, just I want to think about is how can the museum become more aligned with the university's strategic plan and continue to be at the forefront of that and make sure that arts experiences are um, that they're just a natural way of life for students here on campus.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And that is one of the really beautiful things about the JSMA is that it's so profoundly integrated into so many different classes and different faculty members and graduate student instructor members, ways of thinking about teaching and how to conduct their classes. It's great that the
Yeah.
museum is so open.
Yes, absolutely.
When you were at the University of Arizona, I think that you were an award-winning teacher. Is that correct? Did you win
Yeah.
teaching awards there? Yeah.
Yes, I mean, it might be fairly similar to the Humanities Center here. There's the College of Humanities at the University of Arizona has the Humanities Seminars program, and it's a learning opportunity for people who want to take classes, but they don't necessarily want to pursue a degree or have to take tests and write essays, and but they're still very academically focused. There's still a syllabus and a reading list, and so I had the opportunity to teach three classes for. I was actually going to teach a fourth, but I took this job. um, but it's such a wonderful program because you get just amazing students, and that's what I love about teaching is that you're teaching, but you're also learning, and it's really um, a reciprocal thing, where I share ideas, they share ideas, and I always see something or learn something that I didn't know before. And all of the students come from different backgrounds with their own experiences, and so it was really fun. So I did win the teaching award for my seminar on Caravaggio, and then I also did a class on art and authenticity that I won the award for, and that was a really fun one too.
Fantastic. Are you going to be looking for opportunities to do teaching while you're here at UO?
Yes, definitely. That's definitely one of my goals. I don't, I'm not sure if it can happen in this first year, but I mean, it really is something that brings me great joy, and I really love to do it. So, and I see it in various ways. It could be me every now and again leading a tour in the gallery or giving a lecture, at a public library, or it could be something more in depth, like what I did with the Humanities Seminars program, and really creating a course of some kind. So I'm interested in all different kinds.
Fantastic. Well, I look forward to hearing more about that as that plan might develop. What are a few things you just couldn't wait to get back to when you came back to Eugene? Because you did your MA here, right? So you were here for 2 years, is that correct?
Closer to three.
Okay.
It was a 2-year program, but
Okay.
not on my timeline. Um, yeah, so I was here for almost 3 years, and I almost immediately went to Hendricks Park. I lived fairly close to it, and I oh, it smelled the same. It was just so beautiful, and I just I remember when my mom came to visit, and I took her there, and everything was in bloom, and so. I couldn't wait to see that. We went to the coast, but I'm also really excited because, as a student, every weekend you have the guilt in the back of your mind that there's a paper you need to be working on. And I know I'll be really busy, but I'm really excited to also just explore more of Eugene and the state and see things that I didn't see before.
So nice. I know just what you mean about that fragrance too. I feel like it kicks in February and it doesn't recede until late in October, and there is nothing like it. I
Yeah.
totally agree. Um, have you previously worked with Jordan Schnitzer and his family foundation?
Yes, yeah, we worked together a couple of times. I actually met Jordan in I think it was 2018. He was in Tucson on business, and he was getting a tour of the campus and came over to the art museum. And so I gave him a tour. And right after the tour, he said, "You should come to Portland and look at the collection and let's do something." And so we did. I went to Portland a few months later and ended up curating an exhibition called The Art of Food. And part of the reason why I picked that topic, I had no idea what I was going to do before going to Portland. But the Tucson had just recently been named a UNESCO City of Gastronomy, and we were still really celebrating that. And also, there's so much incredible research happening at the University of Arizona related to food, particularly with arid lands, and what do we do with deserts and global warming, and how do we ensure that we have stable food sources? So it kind of just hit so many different topics, and we were able to work with different classes and community organizations. And even though I really curated the show for our space and our community, I was really proud that so many other museums took interest in it because it did travel to 7 other museums and just finished its tour actually a couple months ago. So and then most recently, we also borrowed the Hank Willis Thomas exhibition that started at the Henry Art Gallery, and then we brought it over to Tucson.
That's great. Okay, now we want to know it. Can you tell us the story about the William de Kooning painting?
Yes, I'll tell you the quick version, and
Okay, that sounds good.
we can always follow up with more info, or I could teach a class on it. Who knows? Yeah, so just to go way back before I was born, in 1956, the painting was donated to the University of Arizona Museum of Art, and it was given by a man named Edward Gallagher Jr., who had created a collection called the Edward Gallagher III Memorial Collection. And this was to honor the memory of his only child, who had passed away at the age of 13. And over the course of about 20 years, he built this collection to about 200 works of art. And so Woman Ochre, which is the painting, was part of that collection. The painting traveled all around the world. It went, to South America and Mexico. It went to Europe. It went to Australia. It went to Japan. So it was a widely known painting. Um, and then in 1985, it was the day after Thanksgiving, and a couple entered the museum. The museum was just opening up for the day, and they let the couple in. And they started to go up the stairs, and a security officer began to walk with them. But the woman distracted the security officer in the stairwell to talk about a painting that was hanging there. And meanwhile, the man continued upstairs. And then about 5 to 10 minutes later, he came back downstairs, and the couple left the museum very quickly. So, unfortunately, by the time they realized that the painting had been cut from its frame, the couple was too far gone. And, they had a very quick getaway. No one got the license plate number. They didn't leave fingerprints. And unfortunately, at that time, the museum did not have a camera system. So the case went cold fairly quickly. And fast forward to 2015, at the museum, we decided to hold a 30th anniversary, like commemorative event to try to get the story out in people's minds again. I was a student there. I had no idea this had ever happened until I worked there. There really wasn't information about it on the internet because it was in 1985. And so that was our goal, was to just tell the story and get it out there. And I can't believe our plan worked. So we did an event on art crime and we told that story. We also had fakes and forgeries in the collection and we talked about those. And we had an agent from the FBI art crime team come out and talk about their work. And thankfully, the press picked it up and they spread the story. So 2 years later, in 2017, I got a call from a man named David Van Acker, and he said, "I live in Silver City, New Mexico, and I have your painting." And long story short, he and his business partners own a store in Silver City, New Mexico, where they sell antiques and things like that. And they had been asked to go to a tiny town called Cliff, New Mexico, and look at an estate because it had mid-century furniture and other things that they might be interested in. And so they went there and ended up buying the whole estate, which included Woman Ochre, which was hanging in the primary bedroom behind the door. And so when they brought the painting back to the store, they kind of put it up against a pillar. They were starting to price things, and their clients kept walking in and saying, "I think that's a real de Kooning. You really got to look that up." And they just kind of brushed it off. They thought it was a study or something. And then one man offered them, some insane six-figure number on the spot. And that's when they said, "Oh, okay, we should really look this up." And they did. And they found an article from 2015. And we went there the next day and we got the painting secured at the sheriff's station in Silver City, and then it was able to come back to the museum the following week. So it was a whirlwind, definitely one of the biggest roller coaster of emotions.
Oh my gosh.
And we're just really glad that these were really wonderful people who didn't see any title, to their they didn't see that they had title to the painting, even though they technically bought it, and they wanted to immediately return it. And then we're so grateful that the Getty saw this as an important project, and they did all the conservation treatment pro bono, and it was there for about 2.5 years. And now it's back
Wow.
on the wall at the University of Arizona.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's
And
great.
meanwhile, I see, a career for you as like, true art crime. Olivia Miller, like detective.
Yeah, and the story actually ended up continuing. So if you look up the story now, you'll see that two more stolen paintings had been found in that couple's home. And they were stolen from the Harwood Art Museum in Taos, and
Huh.
those have also been recovered. So,
Huh.
um,
Wow.
it happy ending to a terrible story, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah, and so much credit to the Arizona Museum for deciding to go public and really talk about this issue.
Yeah, yeah, it's hard to do because it's a bit embarrassing, and you have to admit where your faults were, and but also reassure people that you're not the same museum as in 1985. And
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Well, that's wonderful. Thanks for sharing that story.
of course.
What can people come and see right now at the JSMA? What are some current exhibitions?
Oh, there's so many wonderful things to see. We have the wonderful photography collection from Christopher Rauschenberg that's on view, and that's a really incredible variety. I was just up there today and just in awe. And there's a lot of work in that show, so it's definitely one to spend some time with. There's also the James Lavador exhibition. So this is the largest exhibition of his work that's ever been exhibited, and of course, with his Oregon connections, it's really important to come out and support a local artist and also learn more about him and the area of Oregon where he's from. And then, of course, there's also our Shared Visions program. So there's lots of really incredible works on loan right now, mostly contemporary that you can see. People are really getting a kick out of the Yayoi Kusama pumpkins that we have on view. So
I was just about to mention those. Yeah.
that's right. So there's
They've been
one
doing the rounds
indoors.
on Facebook, I think. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and there's one outdoors in the courtyard as well, so you can see it in different perspectives. And that's of course in addition to the permanent collection that regularly rotates. So I'm still trying to get a grip on everything that's on view because there is so much to see.
Well, that's terrific. Well, actually, I'm not kidding too. Actually, after this interview, I'm going to walk across the quad and stop in and take a look
Oh,
because I've
that's
been
great.
meaning to go up and look at shared visions. But in the meantime, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time in what I'm sure is such a busy week.
I really appreciate you having me. Yeah, it's a nice welcome.
Really a pleasure to welcome you. I've been speaking with Olivia Miller, the new executive director of the Jordan Schnitzer Museum of Art at the University of Oregon. Our research notes segment helps us keep current on recent developments in University of Oregon faculty and student humanities research, such as the book we will be discussing today, The Abyss Stares Back: Encounters with Deep Sea Life by Dr. Stacy Alaimo, published by the University of Minnesota Press in 2025 as part of its Post-Humanities series. Stacy Alaimo is the Barbara and Carlisle Moore Professor in English and a core faculty member in environmental studies at the University of Oregon. Stacy, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about your research focus.
That is a little difficult to describe because I'm kind of all over the place. I do American literature, critical theory, cultural studies, gender theory, and also environmental studies and science studies, so science and technology studies. So, and then more recently, I'm turning toward the blue humanities, which just means not the green humanities, but the environmental humanities oriented toward the ocean.
And tell us about The Abyss Stares Back.
So I got really interested when the census of marine life started at the turn of the 20th or 21st century, and utterly impossible aim to count and to categorize every creature in the sea, which is wildly impossible. But it was a massive, big science project that was global. And I started seeing these gorgeous, gorgeous images of deep sea creatures that were newly discovered or newly photographed. And they were coming across my computer screen. And I thought, how bizarre is it that I'm sitting here on land with a computer screen and these creatures are suddenly at hand in a way? And I thought about the layers of mediation and how do those creatures get there and what does it mean? And then the question of, well, two questions. One question is, what would it take to extend environmental concern to the very bottom of the sea and across the pelagic global oceans? And the other is, what is happening here with the relationship between science and aesthetics in the census, their devotion to the arts and the humanities, even though they were a massive, very highly technological, very well-funded big science project.
Oh, interesting. When you say devotion to the arts and the humanities, are you talking about bringing forward those images and including them in the?
Yes, so their website had some videos that were highly stylized in really interesting ways, and then also had all of these portraits and portrait galleries, where each well, they look like a portrait of each of the sea creatures, but they were photographs, but they were all framed in such a way that they were framing them and using the conceit of the museum and the exhibit and the cabinet of curiosities in history as a way of asserting the value of the deep sea life. And they also supported various artists and exhibitions that pertain to deep sea discovery, such as the huge stunning big coffee table book called The Deep by Claire Nuvian that has these absolutely gorgeous photos of deep sea life. So I thought that was all really quite interesting.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it sounds interesting. I look forward to reading the book. Tell us, what makes The Abyss Stares Back important to humanity?
I love how vast that question is because when you're looking at something like the deep sea or the oceans, and also the topic of the Anthropocene, the way in which humans have altered the planet in almost every possible way at this point, the scale is such an important dimension of theorizing about what this could possibly mean. So, I mean, on the most basic level, as the many of the ocean scientists will tell you, every, I think, third breath that you breathe is is supported by ocean life that is creating that oxygen. So if ocean ecologies collapse or are degraded to such a point that they are no longer producing oxygen, humans are going to have some problems. So at that level, it's important. At another level, in terms of just the richness and biodiversity of the world, that's a whole other dimension in terms of do we want to extend environmental concern all the way to the bottom of the sea because of the amazing and unfathomable biodiversity that is dwelling there in those very remote realms. And one reason to do that ethically is that we've already altered the planet. Humans have altered the planet to the extent that even the most remote portion of the Earth has, or the oceans, the deepest part of the ocean, say the Mariana Trench, has things like a creature that was newly discovered that they had named something with the term plasticus in it because it had plastic in its hindgut. So we can't just say let's just leave the deep oceans alone because we're already destroying them in many ways. And so I'm hoping that this book will raise a lot of those issues, but also raise other questions pertaining to the humanities rather than humanity in the sense that it shows that even in something as highly technical and technological and mediated as the science of deep oceans and deep sea life, there's constant turning towards philosophical questions, aesthetic questions, and other questions that are in the realm of the arts and humanities. So I'm really interested in how the arts and humanities play out in these unlikely places in the deep.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for talking with us a little bit about your research and the book. Where can our listeners learn more about these topics?
So my book covers science, it covers literature, science fiction, scientific memoirs, poetry, films. So there are so many different venues, coffee table books, photography, videos, activist videos, so many ways that are in the book that too many to describe here. But I would point out something such as the Deep Sea Conservation Coalition. And so if you're interested in what's happening as far as deep sea conservation projects, which are still relatively a recent thing, you could look that up. Edith Witter, who is a deep sea biologist who studies bioluminescence, recently published Below the Edge of Darkness, and that's an excellent scientific memoir. And then what I recommended previously, Claire Nuvian's book, The Deep, which is a big coffee table book with gorgeous, gorgeous photographs of deep sea life. I would definitely recommend that, and it's a great gift for somebody too.
Thank you. And we'll put links to those resources, as well as a link to the University of Minnesota press page for your book in the show notes for today.
Excellent.
It's been such a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was my pleasure.
I've been speaking with Dr. Stacy Alaimo, Barbara and Carlisle Moore Professor in English and a core member in the Environmental Studies at the University of Oregon. Our Undergraduate Perspectives segment features the voices of up-and-coming UO undergraduate humanities researchers who bring the vibrancy of their work into view and into hearing for the UO and our wider community. Let's take a listen.
I never anticipated what I would discover in the tiny closed-off room beyond the stairs of the library. I was in my first term at the University of Oregon when I entered the special collections for the first time, and I can still recall the vividness of the windowless room, the coldness of the brown classroom tables, and the roughness of the papers dated far beyond my understanding on that very first autumn day. I remember leaving with the desire to surround myself with every novel, yet it wasn't until I read The Diary of a Little Girl from the 1940s almost 2 terms later, when visiting again, that it dawned on me that I was exactly where I was meant to be. Her dainty handwriting expressed the terrors of her first crushes, long lists of who her best friends were this month, and the pain of losing her mother. Despite being a freshman in college long past my early childhood affairs, I couldn't help but feel connected to each word she had written, a sense of greed and hunger filling me to know more about those hidden little moments behind the closed-off walls among the stairs. Oh, when I applied to the Humanities Undergraduate Archival Fellowship, I was chasing the sense of hunger in my research and my desire to explore the little-known moments still stacked in unorganized boxes in the temperature-controlled rooms of the university archives. When I was assigned the Department of Biology Records, I became slightly worried there wouldn't be information I craved, especially since I was expected to create an exhibit out of the decades-old meeting minutes, syllabus, and financial reports. Yet, as I arranged each document, organized them into acid-free folders, and typed delicate details about each piece it provided to me, I felt that greed returned, and the unexpected story wrote itself, intertwined with details discussing political actions, the failure of tendership popular voting expressed in passive-aggressive letters, and the government drama between a director of a field station and a cattleman's society, all hidden amongst the stacks of papers devouring my workspace. Each moment echoed something beyond what I was expecting, hidden in the typical mundane memos and slowly grew into my research exhibit, Under the Microscope, Political Involvement in the Department of Biology. I feel like my research has reaffirmed my belief that there is value in even the most mundane and unnoticed parts of the world. And as an archivist, I want to be the bridge between the creator of these moments and the researchers who see the beauty in these mundane, simple moments. It has also highlighted to me the power behind even the smallest working parts of an institution, while simultaneously humanizing these hidden processes, as I learned alongside the people in my documents. Above all else, I want to remind society and the world at large that institutions, politicians, celebrities, those before us and those after us, are equally us as we are them, and we have a right to explore these moments of greed. By doing so, we can open the world to these hidden moments and allow open access to research to speak to our true desires of knowledge, finding value even in rusty paper clips holding together curriculum figures.
UO Today is a production of the Oregon Humanities Center at the University of Oregon. Thanks for listening.